Today I will be talking with you about bots that run Wikipedia. I work for the Wikimedia Foundation as a product manager, and I was a software engineer before and I've written a lot of bots for Wikipedia, and that's why I'm credible enough to write about this and talk with you about this. Also, I will be taking questions offline after the talk, so I'll just come up to me if you have any questions. All right, so as we all know, all good talks start with a quote, right? I spent a bunch of time looking for a quote about a bot. You know, Einstein must have written something, but I really couldn't find anything. So I wondered if I was approaching this the wrong way. Turns out the internet is full of bots that love to write quotes. InspireBot is one of those designed to generate hilarious, ridiculous quotes. So before we go any further, let's settle on the definition of a bot. Wait, I know, let's ask Wikipedia. Oh. So for the sake of simplicity, I'll go with the simplest definition of a bot for now. A bot is a program or a collection of programs written in a programming language that do automated tasks on the internet. A bot can do tasks at a much higher rate than a human users, which is why they're used for repetitive tasks. Also, we are strictly talking about computer bots and excluding edge cases like Zuckerbot. I'm sure you have all come across bots on the internet, right? They are so ubiquitous on the modern web. According to research last year, about 52% of all web traffic is by bots. And that is a shocking number that should give us all pause. Having so many bots on the interwebs can have far-reaching consequences, as we have all probably seen. However, not all bots are bad. Bots can be extremely helpful in a variety of ways. Let's take a look at some of the more popular bots on social media. Here's an example of a Reddit bot that corrects grammatical errors made by others, and it comes up with unusual tips to remember the right spelling. Here's an example of the bot correcting someone who's correcting someone else. Here's another Reddit bot that suggests an XKCD based on a user's comment. It's actually really accurate. There's another one that follows the first one around and transcribes the XKCD link posted by the first bot. Here's a pretty cool Twitter bot that combines two different news headlines to come up with a single coherent news headline. That's my go-to source for all news these days. And here's one that likes to give people tips on how to live a meaningful and happy life, ironically. So bots can be silly and funny, but they can also be very useful, like this messenger bot that gives you health tips, suggests diets and fitness videos, or the Slack bot that suggests meeting times for people based on their calendar schedules. Bots can also teach you new languages, recommend books and movies personalized to your tastes. Bots can come up with intelligent feeds for you. They are so ubiquitous. Like you've probably interacted with a bot a lot of times without realizing that you're doing that. So bots can be really handy on social media platforms, but what do they do on Wikipedia? Before we address this question, let's understand a little bit more about the ecosystem of Wikipedia websites. I'm sure every person in this room knows the English Wikipedia very well. It's the biggest online encyclopedia with over 5.8 million articles. What you may not know is that the Wikimedia Foundation, which hosts Wikipedia, also hosts a bunch of other websites. Here's a few. Wiktionary is the free and open dictionary. Wikivoyage is the travel guide anybody can edit. Wikimedia Commons is the online repository of free-use images, music, videos, and more. Wikisource is the free library that houses books, essays, historical documents, and Wikidata is the fact repo of all knowledge in the world. Another thing you might not know is that all of these wikis projects are available in multiple languages. We support more than 300 languages and 920 websites across all of these projects. All the language translations are not just content translations, they are in fact separate websites. Let's also now take a quick look at the anatomy of a wiki page. Anybody can edit Wikipedia, as you probably know. Wikimedia Foundation does not play a role in the content on the wiki. It's maintained and added by on-wiki community. You can hit edit on any wiki page and start editing it and save it instantly. Also, all pages are accompanied by a talk page where you can go and discuss and debate the content on a wiki page. Also, perhaps most importantly, all wiki pages have a view history option where you can go to see every single edit made to a Wikipedia article over time. You can also see every version of the page at any given time. So content that lives on wikis is governed by on-wiki communities, as I mentioned. And these communities that maintain these projects have come up with policies and guidelines that dictate what content is allowed on the wiki. Every community functions like a democracy with a constitution that is made of policies and guidelines that the editors have come up with. For instance, this is the notability guideline on English Wikipedia that describes what content is considered notable enough to deserve an article on the website. Here's the neutrality guideline, which explains that articles on Wikipedia must have a neutral point of view and not be biased. And this is the verifiability guideline that states all the content in an article must be verifiable from external sources. This manifests itself in the form of a list of references on every wiki page. Also, all of these are available on all of our projects. So here's Arabic, Italian, Russian. All communities have their own guidelines that they have come up with over the years. With the foundation of policies and guidelines in place, editors add content and often band together to form groups, focus groups, which they use to work on our topic areas of their interests. And these are called Wiki Projects. So here's Wiki Project Geography that focuses entirely on articles of geography, Wiki Project Football, and there's Wiki Projects for almost all cities, and this one's for London. There's over 1,000 such user groups of Wiki Projects on English Wikipedia alone, and if you're interested, you can try and find one. So now that we have a primer on Wikipedia, let's come to the meat of the talk. What's a bot on Wikipedia? Bots on Wikipedia come in many shapes and sizes. Perhaps the broadest classification we can make is authorized versus unauthorized bots. Authorized bots are ones that have an approval by the community. They own an account. They have a known bot owner. They can be tracked and blocked if necessary, if they go rogue. Unauthorized bots, on the other hand, are mostly used for vandalism purposes. They often do not use an account. It's hard to track them and block them because they originate from a variety of IP addresses. For the remainder of this talk, every time I mention a bot, I am talking about an authorized bot on the wiki. Let's take a quick look at bot activity across all of our projects. So bot activity varies greatly with the project in question. Across all of our Wikimedia projects, bots make typically the same number of edits as human users do. It's about 17 million edits a month on average. On English Wikipedia, that number is far less. They make about a quarter of all edits that human users do, about 750,000 per month. On Wikidata, which is the fact repository, bots make a lot more edits, about 6 to 8 million a month, 8 to 10 million a month compared to human users. Bots do a surprising number of behind-the-scenes tasks on Wikipedia, which you've probably never seen or encountered. So let's take a look at some of the tasks these bots typically perform on the wikis. I've broadly classified these activities into 6 buckets. There's more specialized tasks that bots do based on the project. Here's a few. Let's go through each of these in turn. Article maintenance. So these are bots that do maintenance work on articles that are meant for the end readers of the Wikipedia. These bots often go through the highest level of scrutiny because they work on reader-facing content. I'm sure you've all seen a references section on a Wikipedia article. It can be tremendously long. All content on an article must be backed up by external references. Colbert bot is designed to comb through English Wikipedia's reference links periodically and convert external HTTP links to HTTPS links for websites that allow it. This is a pretty basic but very important task. Another example of a bot that maintains our reference links is the Internet Archive bot. It was designed by a volunteer under the guidance of Wikimedia Foundation and the Internet Archive. It periodically checks for dead links in the reference sections of articles and replaces them by the Internet Archive version of the page if available. Another example of a bot that maintains our articles is the Commons Delinker bot. When images that are added to Wikipedia get deleted because of copyright violation or because they're obviously selfies, they leave behind dead links to the image. The red 140px you see in that image is a dead link. The Commons Delinker bot cleans up articles after image deletion and removes links to the deleted images. Bots also play a critical role in helping new editors on Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be a scary place for new editors to join, and bots try and make this easier. HostBot is an example that sends a friendly message to encourage newly registered users to join in the Tea House project on Wiki. The Tea House is a newcomer-friendly space that people can go to ask questions and get involved in editing activities on Wikipedia. Another example is the JustBot. This is a smart bot that generates a suggestion list of articles for you based on the articles you have read or edited based on your editing history. It also suggests areas those articles need help with, so you can help them. Bots also help facilitate discussions. This is pretty important because wikis weren't designed with discussions as a use case in mind. This is a typical discussion page for an article on Wikipedia. As you can see, it looks nothing like discussions do on Reddit or Stack Overflow or Hacker News or any comment section ever. That's because discussions on Wikipedia happen on plain old wiki pages that you can edit to add your comment. So anybody can create a new section, add a comment, and then you sign your comment by adding 4 tilde signs. It's quite cumbersome, and often you run into edit conflicts with multiple people editing the same page. So as I mentioned, that you can add 4 tilde signs to add your signature, and that those 4 tilde signs expand to your username, the link to your talk page, and then the timestamp. Now, while this is super obvious to people who have been editing these pages over the years, it's not really that obvious to new users. This is a task that signpod does for users who forget to sign their comments. And this might seem like a very simple and harmless bot, but it actually got quite a bit of a pushback when it was first deployed on English Wikipedia. There's a whole research paper dedicated to studying how this very simple bot caused a mindset shift on Wikipedia in the early days. Another bot that maintains our discussion pages is ArchiverBot. When discussion pages get too long by a lot of content, ArchiverBot archives older discussions to archives. This is, again, a very simple task, but very important. A lot of bots also help with facilitating site governance. These include a lot of clerical tasks like adding or removing categories, flagging problematic edits, supporting on-wiki voting, generating custom feeds, and a lot more. Delta QuadBot is one example. It reports newly registered users whose usernames seem suspicious, like they claim to be official or they claim to belong to a company. Another example is AreBot, which adds stub tags to very short articles, encouraging people to add more content. You might recognize the English version of this. Also, I should mention that please don't expand this list by committing massacres. Combat copyright violations. This is something that bots don't do very often lately. It's a critical function that they used to perform in the past. It's now more or less been replaced by an external tool. Current Search Bot is an example of a bot that performed this task. It was extensively used on English Wikipedia to help English patrollers detect copyright violations. And last but not the least, combating vandalism is inarguably one of the most critical functions that bots perform on the wikis. I'm sure you have all seen and chuckled at instances of vandalism on Wikipedia. Maybe you even vandalized it. With one example. Vandalism on Wikipedia. So this is like pretty harmless, right? You vandalize it, you take a screenshot, nobody's harmed. But it is a lot of nuisance to editors who clean up after the vandal. right? And vandalism can range from very amateurish additions to outright vandalism like page blanking, or spam articles, or creating articles by yourself, about yourself. So before we look into how vandalism is battled on the wikis today, let's take a quick peek into the history of bots on Wikipedia. Vandalism has played a very important role in shaping how bots work on the Wikipedia today, and that's made it resilient against trolls on the internet these days. Back in 2006, the first known mass vandalism attack happened on English Wikipedia. Somebody began blanking pages and replacing them with an image of a squid, supposedly after the Squidward tentacles character from SpongeBob SquarePants. Using multiple user accounts, open proxies, and probably a bot, the Squidward Vandal was one of the worst nightmares of all Wikipedians at the time. The attack went on for months with hundreds of thousands of articles vandalized. It took a lot of manual effort on editors, from the editors, to track down these vandalism edits and fix them. In the face of this, 4 Wikipedians came up with the anti-vandal bot. It was the first attempt at automated vandalism protection on Wikipedia. It used a very simple set of rules. It monitored recent edits, and based on those rules, it reverted edits which failed those rules. For borderline cases, it would flag the edits to be looked over by human editors. Although it's quite crude by today's standards, anti-vandal bot nonetheless saved the editors a lot of time and effort. And according to several researchers, it saved the website from its doom. Anti-vandal bot has since been replaced by several more intelligent vandalism fighting bots. The newest iteration of this is the ClueBot Next Generation. ClueBot Next Generation makes use of artificial intelligence to detect vandalism edits and does a pretty good job of it. It uses a neural network to detect patterns in edits, and because wikis preserve all edit history for all articles, a lot of data was available from past instances of vandalism to train the bot. The Verge did an article on ClueBot Next Generation titled "This Machine Kills Trolls," so you know it's serious business. Let's take a look at a few of ClueBot Next Generation's edits. So this is a diff viewer. The text highlighted in red was removed by the bot. In this case, somebody vandalized a page to request the page be protected against vandalism. And this one's my favorite because it's not really easy to tell that that's vandalism, but it was smart. The bot was smart enough to catch this. It also has a web interface where people can report false positives, and the programmers can look over them and tweak the bot to be better. It's quite sophisticated, and as with most bots on Wikipedia, the code is available on GitHub, and anybody can use it and fork it. ClueBot-NG is awesome, but it has one downside. It only works on English, and it doesn't protect the other Wikipedias out there. So you might be wondering what goes into writing these awesome bots. It's not that complicated, really. Idea. There's a lot of community pages on Wikipedias where you can go and request a bot that you like. So editors often request bots for simple tasks that they do every day. That's a good source for ideas. Tech stack. Over the years, multiple bot frameworks have popped up to make it easier to parse MediaWiki API responses or do authentication. These are available in a lot of different languages, although Python and PHP are the clear favorites. Development. As I mentioned, almost all of our Wikipedia bots are publicly available on GitHub and open source, so that's a valuable resource. There's also a lot of frameworks available. There's a lot of documentation, although it's hard to find. And then hosting. Bots can be hosted anywhere. Wikimedia Foundation offers a cloud hosting platform where most bots are hosted that run on the wikis. Testing. Bots can be tested on a lot of testing wikis that we have available. There's beta cluster wikis, which can be used for these purposes. Community approval. This is probably the biggest and most important. All bots that run on a wiki must be approved by the wiki community. So different wikis have different ways to do this. I'll touch upon this more in a second. And deployment and maintenance, once approved by the community, the bots can be deployed and run on the wiki. So as I showed you a few policies earlier, there's also a policy about bots on wikis. This is the English Wikipedia policy on bots. The bot policy governs what bots are allowed to do on wiki and what they're not. There is also a bot approvals group, which is a group of users who oversee the activities on bots and take it upon themselves to monitor these bot edits. So yay, we have seen how bots can help Wikipedia and sister websites. They perform a lot of critical functions, they defend the website, they help readers get more out of it, they help the editors more effective. It's awesome. But is it always that awesome? Not always. Sometimes very well-intentioned bot can also be trouble. I'll be taking you through 2 examples of cases where bots did stuff that was, unwanted or not required. This is more of a fact than anything. Bots are dumb, and they can end up doing silly things like getting into fights with other bots. This has happened a few times in Wikipedia history where bots keep reverting each other's edits, and then the cycle goes on. So bots are not all that different from us, right? This was researched upon and presented in a paper published last year. The paper caught the eye of more than a few media outlets, and which took the title quite literally. The TLDR of the paper was that they performed a study over 10 years to see how many times bots revert other bots. And the number went as high as about 34,000 on English Wikipedia in 2009. While that may seem like a high number, it's actually quite tiny compared to the total number of edits on the website every month. Nonetheless, it is a case of bots behaving in an unexpected and unwanted manner. Let's take a look at a bigger example now. So as I mentioned earlier, English Wikipedia is the biggest online encyclopedia of all Wikipedias, right? It's about 5.8 million articles. But can you guess which is the second biggest Wikipedia? Nope. It's a trick question, of course. No. So it's a language that you have probably never heard of. It's the Cebuano Wikipedia. Also commonly known as Bisaya, it is a language spoken by about 21 million people in the Philippines. It's not even the biggest language spoken in the Philippines. And as you can tell where this is going, right? If you look at the other numbers, there's already something suspicious. There's about 1,200 admins on English and 5 on Cebuano, 124,000 active users on English, and 167 on Cebuano. In fact, even the third biggest language there, Swedish, is also a bot-written language, like Cebuano. So what's the bot causing this? It's called LSJ Bot. This is the user page of that bot, which doesn't have all that content, but funnily enough, there is a Wikipedia page for that bot that has a lot more content about it. LSJ Bot was written by Sverker Johansson, a Swedish long-term editor back in the day, and his idea was to generate articles, automatically generate translated articles based on facts published by government agencies or data sources online. His idea was that it's better to have some content about something rather than having no content about it. And that has led to a case like this on Cebuano Wikipedia. These might seem like really random strings of numbers, but these are articles about actual water springs in the United States. Here's one, and here's the English translated version. It contains very basic factual data about the spring level, height, direction, habitation in the area, terrain, etc. You've probably never heard of the spring, and there's a good reason for that. There's, in fact, only 2 other Google search hits for the spring. One of them, as you guessed it, is the source of this data, the National Water Quality Monitoring Council. They did not even consider having an acronym-friendly name. And the second website, any guesses there? Was the second Google search hit for this? It's Google Maps. No offense to the spring, but it really isn't notable enough to be on Wikipedia. I have more Google search hits than that. So while this data might be useful to architects or water companies or conference speakers, it isn't really notable enough to merit inclusion in Wikipedia, and that's why English Wikipedia has strict policy against this. But on Cebuano Wikipedia, at the time, the community was convinced that having more articles on the wiki is a good thing. So as a result, 99% of that Wikipedia is written by the bot. So according to a lot of researches that came up after the fact, it's proven that this has caused several problems on the wiki. The local language content was almost completely drowned out. With everything you search for turns up a stub article created by a bot. Maintenance is a huge task. So editors who should be writing more content are now fighting off vandals and maintaining this content. And then it sparked a numbers war among local Wikipedias where people thought that having more and more articles on the wiki is a good thing. And then a few other Philippine wikis also opted in for the bot and got a lot of these springs on their wiki too. But I don't want to put you off of writing a bot with this, because bots can be super awesome, but there can also be consequences like these. But nonetheless, you should try and write a bot. Bots are very important for Wikipedia websites. They help it thrive by performing article maintenance, helping editors, fighting off vandalism, defending the website. And they are also a great way to contribute towards the sum of all human knowledge. Wikipedia is also a very friendly place for new developers to write bots, because there's nobody to look at your code, it's yours, and you can write it the way you want. There's also a lot of resources to look at, there's open source bots to learn from, there's frameworks to use. And last but not the least, it can be a very rewarding experience to create something simple that helps hundreds of people perform tasks they want more efficiently. And that's it. Thank you so much.